All right. Welcome to episode 326. I'm Chad. Matt is somewhere. Hopefully, he'll be here to chat, but that's okay if he's not. We have our guest here, and that's all that matters. Um, our good friend Dirk Manning from Source Point Press sent him our way. Nandor Fox Schaefer. Um, how's it going, man?
Hey Chad, man, it's going well. It's been a hot summer, I will say, over here in Missouri, but it's been, trying to stay cool and just making comics. So I'm really glad to be here, and I'm excited to talk about my new upcoming release.
Well, just so you don't feel bad, it's been brutally hot here in New York too. So.
Really, really, man. Yeah, it must be some sort of heat wave going around. All my friends and people all across the country are telling me they're suffering as well. So it's just pretty wild.
I guess that's I guess what you expect for summer or something like that.
Yeah.
It's the hottest summer yet.
Yeah, no kidding. It's like we always forget too, I think. Like this is what it feels like, after a while. And don't get me wrong though, I do enjoy uh a nice summer day, and especially one that where the sunshine, is. I mean, the sun doesn't go down till like 8 or 9 p.m. That's kind of nice. So I do enjoy that.
But we're not here to talk about the weather, are we?
No, no, not at all. But we are talking about seasons, so
What
good segue.
great,
Yeah.
great segue. But before we talk about seasons, tell us a little bit about yourself. First off, how about your journey as a reader, and then as a getting into comics as a writer?
Yeah, for sure. So, man, I mean, comic books and superheroes and stories have been a part of my life for so long, as they have been for many writers. And my journey isn't very unique, but uh, I hope that the path that I've taken and kind of my story can be somewhat helpful for people who are in the indie space right now and are still kind of struggling or trying to break into comics. But I grew up reading comics since a very young age. I still remember the first time my dad took me to a local comic book shop here in Jefferson City, Missouri, is where I grew up, and this particular store was very back issue heavy, and so walking into it, you just feel this sense of history and legacy, and um, worlds upon worlds to absorb and to dive into. And so, like, from a very young age, I'd say, you know 7, 8 years old, I really enjoyed comics. And all of it really started by watching superhero movies and superhero TV shows. Like right now, I'm actually rewatching X-Men Evolution, and I remember when that came out, when I was a kid. I was born in 1997, so like when the first X-Men film,
Oh, I
uh,
just turned to dust. Sorry.
when the first X-Men film came out in 2000, and the Sam Raimi Spider-Man films, and on and on into the MCU, like I was just the perfect age, for all of that. And that really fed into my love for superheroes and for comics. And eventually, by the time I was about 17 years old, I graduated high school early, and I was deciding, the kind of um, career I wanted to have, and what did I want to do with my life, and all those things that you start to think about as you get older. And when you're kind of at this crossroads, do I want to go to college? And comics, they came calling, I guess. Like I couldn't. Um, I couldn't shrug off the idea of wanting to write comic books and to become a full-time writer and to tell stories. And I started, actually, Seasons is my first book that I ever started working on. when I was a teenager, and so to be here now and have a release coming out is through Source Point Press and comic book stores everywhere is really a dream come true, and it's a journey that's been, you know, about a decade in the making.
So you said that your introduction was through like comics and or sorry movies and cartoons. Do you remember maybe like the first actual comic book that you picked up, or maybe the one that kind of furthered that spark of interest?
Yeah, I really, I remember going to the library with my brother a lot and renting graphic novels and going to my Barnes& and Noble and picking up graphic novels, and that was right before I had ever, um like, I was reading comics, but in a graphic novel format, and then I found my LCS later on, but, um Kingdom Come was one of the earliest, comics that I ever picked up because I loved Alex Ross's artwork so much. I also remember, um, in particular, Infinite Crisis, was another big story that Jeff Johns, wrote at DC, and I would just, like, mull over the hardcover of Infinite Crisis and the trade paperback of Kingdom Come, like, over and over again. And, but I would say that the comic that really changed everything for me, that made me wanna buy comics on a monthly basis was Ed Brubaker's, Captain America run with Steve Epting. That was really and like that was the moment that I learned you could follow a comic every month and that they released every month. And I picked up the Death of Captain America, and kind of all of Ed Brubaker's Captain America run at the library and would read it. And like Secret Invasion was about to come out too in a year or two. So like that whole early to mid 2000s era of Marvel was like incredibly enticing to me, and um, those were the books that I just started to fall in love with. And sooner or later it's like I was reading Bendis on Avengers and Hickman on Fantastic Four and Jason Aaron on Wolverine and like Matt Fraction on Iron Man when the first Iron Man movie came out. Like all those books were incredibly influential.
So, uh, well, let's jump right into it. Tell us, give us, let's start with the elevator pitch of seasons.
Sure. So, Seasons is a supernatural, grounded superhero story that follows this young man named Fletcher Eames through 1 year of his life. And with each passing season, his abilities change. It's Unbreakable meets The Crow, is what I like to say. And if you're a fan of emotional, character driven storytelling and stories that um, kind of dip their toes in the supernatural but are not entirely like submerged in it. This is the book for that person that kind of wants a little bit of the everyday relatable character kind of learning about this, and this other world that he kind of finds himself in, and all of these things that he goes through are things that will help him on his journey to become the person he's always meant to be.
So, having laid out that premise, what was the inspiration for for the story initially?
Yeah, it's a really good question. You know, thinking back, um, I was really when I was thinking about what I wanted to do and um, landing on the idea of writing comics, I was thinking what kind of story I would want to tell in that medium because I knew I wanted to embrace the medium and do something kind of special. with it. And initially, the idea was, well, could I write a story that would take place, uh, quote unquote, in real time, where the book would be coming out on a monthly basis, and it would follow the seasons of the year. And that was really interesting to me. But then um, I realized that, one, being an independent creator, that wouldn't be possible. But two, it couldn't just be that. Like it had to have something deeper than just that. And that was where the idea came from. That I love superheroes, but what if the seasons themselves had something to do with why this character would have different powers or different abilities. Some of our favorite characters, their power set is so um, characteristic of who they are, and it's why we love them. And so I was like, well, what if I kind of turn that on its head, and we we saw a character continually change, and that change actually fed into not only his abilities but the person that he is. And so I kind of used that as a metaphor, to show his evolution as well, and the powers themselves. Um, Kind of aid him on this journey to defeat his foes and to discover things about himself, and that represent universal truths about humanity, that he would have to overcome and kind of come to grips with and discover. And so, like, all of these things kind of started to, like, the planet started to align in a sense, and uh these ideas started to correlate, and I could see a connection and a pattern and how to write a story like this. And so, um you know uh long story short, it was really the fascination with, what if someone's powers continually changed and it was dependent upon nature itself.
So if you want to go into how what seasons, how do they affect the character's powers, or how does that play into his journey as a superhero?
Yeah, and so he's not a superhero in a traditional sense. He's very much uh, a regular dude, a regular guy. And in this first volume, he discovers his powers after a very emotional incident that he goes through, and it kind of awakens this um, ability that he creates his shadow self, and this other version of himself starts to kind of run rampant on the world. And that's kind of the inciting incident that also has Fletcher, the main character's name is Fletcher, has him discover these other abilities that he has. And so with every season, there's a different power set. And it usually takes, it's either the first day of that season, like June 21st for the first day of summer, or an incident that occurs within that season that these powers start to awaken within him. And none of them will be the same, or will be um, duplicated throughout the year. And it's all set within this 1 year time frame. And so it's going to be 4 volumes altogether. And um, you'll get a clear picture of this overarching story that we're telling, while also having these separate seasons with their own individual stories, that all connect.
So and obviously there's a supporting cast. Who is the supporting cast, and how do they factor into the story, interact and all that stuff?
Yeah, so I will say Fletcher is definitely a lonely character, and a lot of the world, we only really see through his eyes, especially in the first volume. And throughout the rest of the series, you'll see him kind of open up with each book and more characters being introduced. But in volume one, we have Fletcher, and then we have his love interest, Kathleen, who's a coworker of his. And then we also have Fletcher's family. So he has a younger brother and his mom and dad. And those are the supporting cast, the main supporting cast for the first book. And you'll kind of see his um, struggles with relationships with his family, some kinda, he's estranged from his family, and he's not very good at, communicating and trying to be, um, this person he wishes he could be, and, all the insecurities that come with that when you're trying to find love. And so Fletcher kind of embodies this wayward soul that is struggling and has a lot of resentment for the world and for his family and people around him. And so he's kind of sheltered himself from all of this. And in this volume, we really get to see all of that come out. And, besides the supporting cast, the antagonist of the book is Fletcher's shadow self. And so through his eyes, we really get to see and feel all of the things that Fletcher doesn't allow himself to really feel.
So, how did you? I mean, he sound he's a very complex character. Um, how did you go about creating his character? Um, and what I guess what's your theory or process of character creation?
Yeah, well, this kind of goes back to really enjoying Ed Brubaker's run on Captain America. One of my favorite things that I loved about the way Brubaker writes Bucky in particular, the Winter Soldier, and when he becomes Captain America in the story is Brubaker has a knack, and you see this in his other work too, but he's incredible at getting into the mind of his characters and um, reading someone's inner thoughts and the inner monologue that is happening was always like such a like it was like dessert for me. It was like something I couldn't get enough of, and I kind of always was disappointed when I'd read a comic and I didn't know exactly what the character was thinking, and that was something that I wanted to do. Like just like I wanted to challenge myself to be able to write a character where we would be inside their head and we could learn about them and see the beautiful thing about comics as a medium too is you really have that opportunity to dig deep into what a character is thinking in the moment, and they could even be um the reader could be learning about what a character's past, or what he really thinks about a situation or something, while that character is like talking to someone and maybe lying about how they really feel. And so having that play between that dance between the audience and the characters themselves, I just was like, I want to write a story where the main character is just such a like the story lives or dies on this one character. And so it was really important for me to give him all of these obstacles and this kind of dark past that he's never been able to reconcile, and he feels stuck kind of in his life and what he's been able to do, and the lack of growth that he's been able to sustain. And so whenever I approach characters, it's really about um, trying to figure out the motivation for what they want to do. What is their purpose? What is their goal? What are they trying to get? And kind of working backwards from there and filling in the reasons why maybe they haven't been able to achieve those things. And so Fletcher is that's kind of where he started, and I really just wanted a character that um anyone could open the book and relate to and see how much this character is struggling and kind of be fascinated with the idea like hey man like it's all going to be okay, like we as the reader know that but the character doesn't know that, and I would hope that eventually the reader would come to empathize and come to root for someone to overcome these things that have always been haunting him.
Hi, Matt.
Hi, we started early and I didn't know. I'm so sorry for that.
Well,
Uh,
I think I don't know.
Life happens.
You're
Life's
hearing
gonna
it.
life sometimes. Nandor, thank you for showing up for our show on short notice. I wish I was a courteous host and had done and showed up for you.
No, it's okay. I really appreciate it. I wasn't sure exactly. I think I got my
We have to
time.
stop talking about Matt now.
Yeah.
You don't have to.
But yeah, I'm so happy to be here, and we're talking about the main character of seasons right now, and it's been a great time so far.
Awesome, awesome. Well, forgive me if I'm asking a question that's already been asked, but is this your first step into like the bigger pond of comics with Source Point, or have you do you have a backlog of stuff that you've published?
Yeah, so this is it's funny. I got my first two publishing deals in the same month last year. And Source Point was the second one that I got for season. So it is the first book that's coming out. So in some ways I guess it's my first publishing deal, but um I've been making comics for a few years now, and I've been uh, crowdfunding them, yeah, through Kickstarter since I was, I don't know, since like 2017, 2018. And I've been coming out with the book a year. I have the first three issues of Man-Child, The Fabled Offering, Lifeline, which is an original graphic novel, and then Seasons was originally a crowdfunded book years ago, and finally getting a publisher to pick it up has really kind of breathed new life into it and has really helped us to continue on since it's going to be a 4 volume series.
I love that you've been crowdfunding for almost a decade now. Tell us what is some of the ups and downs of that, especially during the years of COVID, been like for you?
Yeah, things have been thankfully like consistent for me, but um there I think the longer that you do it, the more you understand, but also um the more frustrated you get because um you're always hoping that the next book will be easier. The next book will be easier to crowdfund, not necessarily create, but just like by building an audience, crowdfunding can be such a difficult marathon. You have to think of it as a marathon in terms of trying to build a fan base and to promote yourself and to reach out to people and do podcasts and do shows and use social media. I would not be on social media, I don't think, if it weren't for trying to promote and trying to like share my work with people. And so those are the things that have been quite difficult. But I will say I never get tired of the process of um, communicating with my readers and seeing people come back for more and people interested for the next issue and the next project and the people that are rooting, that have always rooted for me since I started, and kind of like um, uh, vindicating them, like, hey, like I was able to accomplish this thing because without you guys, without the support of um, all my fans and people that have stood by me and have bought my books over the years, I wouldn't be here today. I would have stopped a long time ago. So I really love that I live in an age of crowdfunding because I really don't know how people used to do it without it. So it's quite the privilege.
Well, I think we need to address the elephant in the room. how do you know Dirk, and how did you come to
Yeah.
be a part of Source Point?
Yeah, so I actually met Dirk through another Source Point press creator, John Dexter. He has a book, Dime Store Detectives and Alpha Dogs, that is currently published through Source Point Press. And I remember seeing him um, partner with Source Point about a year or so ago, and or a year and a half maybe. And I talked to John kind of about the contract and Source Point, and then he um, directed me to talk to Dirk about everything, and uh, I I'd been looking for a publisher for seasons for a while, and a dream of mine, a goal of mine, has always been to get my books in stores. While I love the direct market, and while I love just directly selling to my fans, I love comic book stores and I love bookstores. And I mean, I wouldn't be a comic book fan without them. And so I'm thinking about that person that has never heard of Kickstarter, that, doesn't maybe trust, I don't know, like putting their information online, or selling, or trying to like back something that they don't know if it'll be made or not. Um, and I wanted to reach a new audience, and I want to do that through retailers and through comic book shops. And so for me, that was just like something that I've pursued, year after year after year. And when I saw that John was working with SourcePoint, and then other creators were working with them as well, um, I was like, well, there's got to be something to this, and maybe seasons, like I remember Dirk said like they're not going to publish superhero stories, and I was a bit like, oh, I don't know if seasons will fit that mold or not, or will be disqualified. But I did send it to him, and it won him over, somehow, some way. And it's not a traditional superhero story, but there's definitely elements of that. And so I think that's the cool thing about the story, is that if you love superheroes, you'll get something out of it, but you do not have to enjoy it. And that's something that I think is a good selling point for it. But yeah, just seeing how successful Dirk had been with his own projects, and how much of a builder he had been with his own work, and then kind of this bringing SourcePoint back in a big way, I wanted to be a part of that. I really believe in independent publishers, and getting new voices out there, and it just seemed like an opportunity that I could not pass up.
So you've subtitled Seasons Volume One as Spring, so that means at least they're looking at least three more volumes.
Yeah.
So to complete the calendar cycle there, is there a specific metaphorical or analogy for spring in and of itself as the subtitle or theme for this volume?
Yeah, completely. So each story really connects with the season in a way that I hope readers will catch. And we have these little end pages with every chapter break. There's this kind of little motif that we have of this tree that's blooming, and so like the whole point of spring is the beginning of something, the beginning of a journey.
Hmm.
Maybe it's a bit cliche, but it has this sense of um, a flower, bursting with new life, and that's what Fletcher is becoming. It's like a form of becoming. And with summer, not to get into spoilers, but like summer is very wild, it's very hot, it's very intense. Fall is definitely more of a darker, kind of more morose story. The fall of something, the 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 darkness as it kind of creeps in. And then winter is kind of a sense of um, isolation, and a feeling of hibernation. And then we eventually go back to rebirth. So it's that
Mhm.
sense of birth and death and rebirth and new life. And so kind of playing with all of those different ideas and kind of the correlations that we have with the different seasons of the year, and we kind of play with that visually through the chapter breaks, and then also just kind of the vibe of the story. Like it's one whole story, but each volume has a different flavor to it that leans into the season itself in a way. So like you're not going to necessarily like hopefully the if we do our job right, you're going to feel like every volume is the same voice and the same story,
Mhm.
but you're going to see the evolution of Fletcher's character and the evolution of the storytelling and how uh, the enemies that Fletcher faces and the things that he goes through is very much tied to that particular season.
So it's going to be a 4 volume set, one for each. And I would assume that winter being the last one would kind of be like the climax, the
Yeah.
resolution between, you know, Fletcher and his shadow self or whatever.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's a long, it's weird to think about. I do have the entire series written, and so I know how everything ends and where we're all going, and that's really exciting. And I can't wait to have all 4 volumes on my bookshelf, and the way that will look. Each volume is over 100 pages. I think volume 3 is about 150 pages, and volume 4 will be around the same length. So like these are big books, and these are grand stories, and it's one huge journey, 1 year journey that Fletcher goes through, and that we get to see him go through. And so there's kind of this slice of life element to it that you get to see this character interact with people, the same people throughout a year, and kind of see how he changes and how he treats them and how they treat him. Um, and just kind of getting kind of to be a fly on the wall of someone and see their evolution and to see um, the kind of things that we all go through and the relatable things that we all go through and how someone is able to deal with those things on a very human, and basic level and everyday level. But of course, there's a lot of there's a lot of supernatural abilities and fighting and a lot of excitement that is all rolled into there. And it's my hope that um, the reader will kind of see the how Fletcher himself, is kind of a fish out of water, and he's discovering these things about himself and about the things he can do that, maybe will be a mirror for a reader and think, I could do amazing things as well, just like Fletcher can do. And so, you might not be able to like, have super speed or fly or anything like that, but you can still do amazing things in the world.
Now do you do the art also, or are you working with, you know, an artist on the series?
Yeah, so I'm the writer and creator of the book, and the artist of the book is Anthony Gonzalez Clark. And the book is black and white, and so it's just his inks and gray tones. There's a lot of great detailed work, and Anthony as an artist has evolved himself throughout the series, and we've already completed volume 2, and we're working on volume 3 right now. So, um, just seeing his work get better and better has been really exciting. But yeah, we've been working on this book for a while. Like I said, each volume is over 100 pages, so it's been a lot, a lot of budgeting and scheduling and kind of figuring out how we can get this done. And then I've been working on my other books as well. So it's just hopefully a matter of time before all 4 volumes will be done.
Was it a conscious creative decision to utilize black and white work?
It was, yeah. So, I loved The Crow growing up. Was one of my favorite books. As you know, it should be for many people. Um, and there was something raw about the black and white artwork, and I didn't I didn't necessarily want the reader to be distracted by anything. I wanted the reader to just in like Anthony's work stands on its own in black and white that while he could have colored his work or I could have hired a colorist for the book, um, I was really satisfied and I thought, this reads super well and works just as well, and I didn't want anything to get in the way or in between um, the reader and the work. And so there's kind of this underground alternative comics vibe to it that I really enjoy. And having it be my first published work, out there, I think that really works. There's something poetic about that.
Very
And
cool.
how did the two of you, initially connect or, you know, come to work together on the series?
Yeah, so when I first had finished writing, I think I'd finished maybe the first or second issue of Spring, first or second chapter, I mean. And at that time I had been, I was learning like how to write a comic, how to market a comic, like how do you find an artist. I was trying to learn all these things, and now I'm you know I know very like I have such a community around me of artists and people, and it's really easy to find someone to work with. But at the time, I had no idea, and so like I would go on these art forums that are probably extinct, now, and just go on different blogs and go on different art sites like DeviantArt, and I would just type in something very generic like comic book artist or comic book art and kind of go through pages and pages of um, images and see if any of these, are legit, artists that are looking for work. And I stumbled upon one of his pieces on DeviantArt and reached out to him, and he was looking for work, and he was looking to do comics, and it just worked out. It was a very kind of strange, miraculous thing that we were both looking for something big to do and something big to work on.
Now you said earlier that seasons is one of the first things that you wrote. How has it been to kind of, and you kind of said you had to learn how to write comics and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Looking back on it, how would you describe that experience, and what do you feel is the most important thing that you've learned?
Yeah, that's a great question. I will say I'm a bit self-conscious about releasing this book because it was like the first thing that I ever wrote when I was, my late teens, early 20s. And, I'd like to think I'm a much better writer now. And, I hope that I am. But there's something really like it's like a time capsule for me. Like when I look at the book and I look at the work, I didn't want to revise it. I didn't want to redo it. I didn't want to retouch it. I really believe in the story and the work that we had done, and I wanted to be vulnerable with it. And Seasons is a very vulnerable book just in itself, with the subject matter and everything that Fletcher is kind of going through with his own mental health struggles. And so, um, the thing that I've learned, um, I think like a few of the things that I've learned are just some of the technical aspects of comic book writing, whether it be um, the amount of words in a word bubble or thought bubble, or um, the ability to understand real estate on a page and look at the amount of dialogue that's there and just from looking at it, realize if this is a 1 or 2 page, scene. Like just being able to really see that, like intuitively now, instinctively. And at the time, years before when I started writing comics, I kind of would just write and write and write and not really worry about or think about how much was on the page. And now I'm really cognizant of that. And I think that's something that's really helped my pacing as a writer and my ability to collaborate. And I will say, um, the I still am very proud of my ability to, I think, write from the character's perspective and not just write from a plot perspective. I'm very much a character writer, and I love, um, like that's where a lot of my stories start is the character. And so, um, with all my work that I've done, whether it be Seasons or Manchild or The Fabled Offering or Lifeline, um, all of that, I think you can see a through line of this is Nandor Fox Schaefer's voice. This is what he's able to do, and it's about writing compelling characters and giving our characters struggles that they have to overcome, and hopefully making the reader feel that and really be on the side of the character themselves.
And
I mean,
yeah,
oh, go ahead, Chad.
that's good. I was gonna say, given that, where do you go for inspiration? Where do you turn to? Is it, you know, other works? Life? Things that happen in real life?
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I remember just recently when I did a convention. I was kind of pitching my books to this one customer, and um, I don't know if it was just like the subject matter or the way I was kind of pitching them, but the question the customer had for me was, like, well, like, what happened to you? Like why are you writing these, really dark kind of cerebral stories, and like where do these ideas and these stories come from? And I thought it was a really interesting question. I was a bit, uh, taken aback by the question, but I could thinking back on it, I can kind of understand how like the stories that I like to write tend to be quite intense and emotionally, uh, like there's an interrogation, um, method to the kind of stories that I like to write in terms of getting to the bottom of things and wanting to get to the heart of a character and to deal with complex themes and complex subject matter that our characters have to struggle with, whether they be ethical dilemmas or just kind of relational landmines that they have to go through and kind of walk through. Um, and you know, a lot of my stories come from experiences that I've had, but also I will say a lot of them come from experiences I'm worried about having or I'm afraid to have. Like there's kind of this sense of anxiety or fear, about like, well, what if this were to happen to me? How would I respond to something like that? And that could be from friends or just from acquaintances telling me about their life or their stories, and you kind of have to like think to yourself like, I'm really glad that's not happening to me, but like I'm so sad for those people that are struggling with this thing or this other thing. And I always like to kind of understand people and understand the human condition. And that's where a lot of my stories come from. Um, but I will say, like, I'm never more energized to write something than when I've read an amazing comic or watched an amazing movie. Like there's this my battery gets recharged to the sense where all I want to do now is write. I want to sit down and work on something and try to create something amazing, because like if the goal of mine, the dream of mine has always been, everyone has a different measure of success, but I think my measure of success has to do with if I can make someone feel the way I feel when I read an amazing story that really resonates with me, then I've done my job. Like I've made it. No matter how much a book sells or what people think of the artwork or the writing or anything, but like if you're just reading it and you're experiencing it and it does something to you on like a cellular emotional level, and makes you feel something that you didn't know you could feel in that moment. That's like what I aim for and what I strive for. And so those are the things that really inspire me to create.
Very cool. Very deep. You mentioned earlier about Fletcher's mental health.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, for sure. This is definitely a story that deals a lot with um, kind of repressed uh, feelings and depression and a sense of loneliness and longing and estrangement from his family. Uh, Fletcher, this volume, when we think of spring, we typically think of lots of colors and bright, the like new beginnings in a sense of like optimism. And while that's true, this particular story, like the way that those new beginnings come about is only in recognizing the struggles and the pain that took to get here, to get to this point. And so Fletcher's insecurities and um, his sense of loneliness is really a huge part of him and his feeling like an outsider and like no one really understands him or he's not able to connect with people in a way that he would like to. And he's kind of obsessive and analytical and an overthinker and all these things that young people struggle with, but also just everyone sometimes struggles with, just depending on um, what they're going through in that moment. And uh or in that season, no no pun intended, but like it's like there's that sense of um darkness that he has to come to come to terms with, and his shadow self is that representation. um he really sees like man, all these things are happening to me, and I'm kind of being beaten up, and all these people don't love me, and I feel lonely, and I don't have any like agency to do anything about it, and the world is just crumbling. And the shadow self is kind of this way for him to realize like, man, like maybe like I can do something about my situation. Maybe there is something about my family or my relationships that it's not just I'm not just at the mercy of these things, but I actually can have a say in how I react to these situations and what I do. And Fletcher doesn't really realize how dark he's gotten, like
Mm.
sometimes I think when we're going through something really heavy and hard, and our loved ones see us and they're like, you've changed, like you're a different person, and maybe we don't even realize that, because we're just in it, we're in the hurt and the pain and the depression and the sadness and the loneliness, and we don't realize that you know there are there is another path, and there are people that care for us and that want us to feel better and to be better, but we get so kind of absorbed in circular thinking and kind of going around and around and around, and that's kind of where Fletcher where he starts off in the first book.
Right on. So, and part I this is kind of a personal question for me to ask you, but is a lot of is any of this coming from personal experience that you're bringing to the page?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm happy to talk about it. I mean, yeah, when I was when I was in my teens, late teens, when kind of a big reason I wrote this story um, was because and why I am a writer, I will say, is um, I find that stories to me have always been the best way for me to communicate. And um, I don't know, I don't really know why that is, but it just is, and I kind of have accepted it. But Fletcher is really um, kind of tortured by things that I always had dealt with in my life, but didn't really know how to explain to people. And you know, not all of him is me, and I definitely do not want that because I'm not a fan of self inserts or anything like that. But he does come from a place of um, authenticity and a place of questions that I had growing up and struggles that I had growing up, and not really knowing how to communicate these struggles or how to resolve them. And so seasons is in writing seasons in that process of writing the series was a way for me to understand myself, but also understand like a new path forward and what that could look like. And what if Fletcher can do it, maybe I can do it too. And if
Sure.
Fletcher can do it, maybe other people can survive something like this.
Love that. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, of course, of course.
Yeah, mental health. Um, it's so important to talk about it, and directly or indirectly, as you've alluded to with your writing. Um, it's just part of being a healthy human being, right?
Yeah,
So anything
yeah.
that we or you as a creator or just you as an individual can put out into the universe to stir that pot and keep that conversation going is vastly important in my estimation.
Yeah, I think I mean that's why some of my favorite stories are really dark stories. And it's not because I like dark things, but I f- like my taste, like I feel that. Like I can feel what that person is going through. And some of my favorite stories are the ones that and like The Crow, for example, like that story does not exist without a terrible thing happening to James O'Barr. And it's like he lost his love of his life and he put it into his art and he made something that is like a universal truth and treasure of a story that people can always look at um, and feel that emotion, and to be able to put that on a page and to communicate those feelings um, to me it gets to the heart of how someone processes something and how really deep the wounds can go, that just talking about it doesn't necessarily do it justice, and I feel like the the books that I like to make and the books that I like to enjoy and the stories I enjoy um, seek to get to the heart of things in ways that maybe some people are uncomfortable talking about, but they can understand or relate to it within a story. They can find their voice in a story and they can see themselves in a story. And to me, those are the ways that have always been the most impactful, because it's like you read something and you feel seen. You feel
Mhm.
like this person understands what I'm going through, and they didn't even have to say that, but you just know. It's like this thing that you can just feel and know and understand, and um, it's honestly one of the best things about stories and why I love storytelling so much.
So with your your other works you're still creating, are you still going to be using the Kickstarter crowdfunding method along with working with the publisher?
Yeah, for sure. So, until someone picks up Manchild or potentially the Fabled Offering, like I have 3 more issues of Manchild to crowdfund, and I'd like to do more of my sci-fi fantasy series, The Fabled Offering. But I seasons will be published by SourcePoint Press, and then um, I actually have another book, post-apocalyptic noir book that's being published by Gungnir Books, that will be released next year, and I'm working with Steve Orlando as my editor on that project, and
Oh,
he's working.
sweet.
Yeah, he's a great writer. He's doing Scarlet Witch right now at Marvel and has done amazing stuff at
Just
many
just
companies.
put some weird stuff in there to trip him up.
Yeah.
He needs to be kept on his toes. But you mentioned
Yeah.
Gungnir. I talked to them last week about their publishing and their new YouTube show.
Yeah, Bad Grammar. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's been so much fun. And yeah, Matthew Bendy is a great creator and friend of mine. I like to call him my friend. And we hung out at New York Comic Con last year, and I'm going to see him at San Diego in a few weeks. So I'm really excited to go to San Diego to be my first time, and I'll be there as a professional creator. So I'll be
Heck
able
yeah,
to.
man.
Yeah, I'll be able to hopefully rub shoulders with some of my heroes, and talk to people, and so I'm super stoked. But yeah, I'm gonna be still putting out my own books under my brand Foxhole Comics. People can check out my work at foxholecomics.com, and they can purchase Manchild or any of my other publications, and then I highly am pushing people to go to their local comic book shop and order seasons right now from SourcePoint.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh,
Any other shows on the docket for this year?
I'm hoping to do GalaxyCon St. Louis in October. I live in Missouri, so I'd like to do a local show like that. I've heard a lot of good things about the GalaxyCon conventions. So I'm hoping to do that, and that'll be, a month or so after seasons releases worldwide. So, I think that'd be a perfect time to kind of start doing the con circuit. But I'll be doing more shows as more books are being released in stores for sure.
you mentioned that you're on social media primarily to hype your books. Where can folks find you at?
Yeah, so feel free to find me on X at Nandor Fox, or on Blue Sky at Nandor Fox. Also Instagram. Typically, I'm probably the only Nandor Fox that you'll find. So like if you just look anywhere, I try to be everywhere. I'm on Threads now. I'm on Instagram, like I said, and also I do have a newsletter. So if people want to just follow me on Substack, I do have a Substack newsletter that people can find. Just look up Foxhole Comics or Nandor Fox Shaffer, and there you'll get kind of all my like more official press releases, and also articles. I do have a YouTube channel as well, Foxhole Comics, and sometimes I'll do video essays or live streams, kind of like unboxings, and kind of talk about things that I'm working on.
Right on. Okay, well, Chad, do you have any final words of wisdom for our guest?
Well, if you happen to make it to New York Comic Con this year, I'll stop by and say hi.
Absolutely, Chad will be there.
Yeah.
Representing Comic Watch.
I would love to say hi in person for sure. I did apply for New York Comic Con, so I'm waiting to hear back for it. But I loved my time there last year, and I really want to go back. So I hope to make it.
All right. Well, Nandor Fox Shaffer, thank you very much for hanging out with us tonight. Even though I was 20 minutes late, sorry. The book is Seasons, Volume 1, Spring from Source Point Press. You should absolutely get out there and back it on Kickstarter. It's a very cool, unique.
No, order it from your shop. That's what we want.
Order it from your shop. Excuse me.
Yeah. No,
We
you're
do
fine.
We do want to support our LCS.
Yeah, it's right now. It's available to pre-order through Lunar Distribution, and so the final order cutoff is August 17th, and it releases in stores everywhere September 9th.
There you have it. All right. Well, thank you very much, my new friend, for hanging out with us tonight. We do appreciate it. We always appreciate our good friends at Source Point Press for hooking us up with new up-and-coming creators like yourself. You guys can thank you all for listening. And you can always follow us and check out these and past interviews at comic-watch.com anytime you want. So until next time, Chad, who are we talking to next week?
I think we might have a guest, or it might be our San Diego Eisner Roundtable predictions.
Okay.
We'll see.
Nice. Yeah.
Well, until then, we remain the Comic Watchers. He's Chad, I'm Matt, and this is our show. Thank you so much for listening.